God is truly good. He's worthy to be praised. Man, what an awesome day it is, whether we're in Las Vegas, in Tijuana, Mexico, or in Africa. It just doesn't matter where we are. We're so excited that you've joined us here Wednesday check-in, and we're so blessed to have. I got my sidekick. You know who the sidekick is, and we're going to wait for you to come on. But as you come on, watch this. As you come on, we want you to type in how things going, how you doing, that we need to pray about it. We need you to type that in. And the reason we need you to type that in is so we can touch and agree with you and make sure that everything is all right with you. We just don't want to make this about us. We want to make it about you. Very unique tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're so privileged to not only we thank God for my our co-producer, Lawrence William Chaney. Lawrence William Chaney, he helps keep us straight when things get erratic. But I'm also excited tonight. I'm excited tonight about bringing on a dynamic brother, a brother who has really done some things, impacted the lives. He's a graduate of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. He is a CPA. He is a Christian. He is an awesome man of God. I want to bring him on at this time. He is Mr. Corey Moody.
Well, thank you, Brother Chaney. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'm joining you on your Wednesday check-in. And, we've been talking about starting a series, and I'm glad to be able to bring some information. I've been speaking around the country for over 30 years. I've done it in the private sector, the public sector, also done it with churches, some of the biggest churches in the country. And if I was to say those, I would know what they are and who they are. So, I'm used to talking about, financial services or financial stewardship within the church environment or the Christian environment. So it's my pleasure to start this series off. And it's going to be a little different. We are going to talk about some nuts and bolts about budgeting, how to, get debt free. It's just some strategies that we're going to be talking about. But what I found out over years of experience is that we have to break some strongholds. We have to kind of loosen up something. When I go around the country with Pastor Legions over there at Eagle's Nest, we have this term we call PM, and it's called poverty mentality. And that mentality, is something that's passed down, and we have to learn how to break those strongholds. And it's not a color issue either. So we're going to hit on some real tough and hard subjects because we have to break free. And I'll be using some terms like mentality, slave, but it's not about color, it's about the mentality that goes along with that. So, I want to kind of stage, I'm going to be coming from a biblical perspective, and I'm not going to be saying that every 5 minutes to let people know that's where I'm from. So if you catch it on right now, kind of understand that those things are automatic. So I want to make sure that we understand that I'm coming from the Christian biblical perspective. And one of the things that I found over my 30-something years of experience and why it's hard to kind of break free, is really understanding value. Now, I'm a CPA and I'm also a CVA, which is a certified valuation analyst. In that arena, I deal with mergers and acquisitions and valuation. And one of the things I kind of learned from that is understanding value. And even within my own practice, I had to understand value of services. And we have to understand our own value that we have as it relates to us individually. And it's very important to understand your value so you can break free. And it's something we, that I struggle with, with how I price and do my services and services that I even take on. So it's just going to be very important to understand what value really is. And I'm going to kind of, kind of tell you about value. And if you go, Leviticus 27, and the Lord is talking to Moses, and he's talking about, and one of the things, we have to understand, he had a price. A man between 20 and 60, was worth 50 shekels. As you got older, the value decreased. Women were worth, 30 shekels within a particular age group. And this is not to say who's more valuable than others, as it is to understand we all have a value. And I believe I heard, I don't know how many times, that we bought with us. And so in saying that, we have to understand value. And we have to understand our value so we don't shortchange ourselves. So understanding that, the Lord gave Moses these directives. This is what everybody is worth within this particular area or this age. And if you could not afford and you want to put something up and forward it, that asset will be given to the priest, and then the priest will set that value according to what you can afford. And I kind of want to, touch on that because, we have people on government assistance, subsidy, and something that I kind of heard when there's a segment that's on government assistance, they want to call it welfare. When another segment gets money from the government, it's subsidies. And I kind of want to break it down a little bit more. When you watch the news and they talk about certain people, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and they always talk about what they're worth. Now, what is that net worth? Oh, he's a billionaire. He's a trillionaire. We got our first trillionaire now. And when they talk about another segment, especially when they talk about entertainers and athletes, I always want to talk about how much money they make per year. What was their contract? They signed a $40 million contract. A young fella from the Kansas City Chiefs signed that half a $1 billion contract. But they never really value. What is its worth? And I want us to take the time to understand what our value is, what our net worth is. And one of the tools that we have to use, and if you've gone through some of the financial programs that are out there, and there are some good programs out there. And one of the things we do first is to do what we call a balance or a net worth statement to understand where we are today. So you list all your assets, you list your liabilities. Well, when you subtract those two, you get your net worth. And that's important to know and to understand. It's important to track because what you want to be doing is to increase your net worth day to day, month to month, year to year. That's what we do in the M&A world. We look at businesses and we judge them by performance. And to judge by performance, you have to have indicators. I've always had indicators for my personal life. And I run all my check accounts, I run them through QuickBooks. I know where every penny is spent for my life over the past, I don't know how many years, because I've always know what's happening, where I'm spending my money. It's also, we're going to find out where you overspending and you're wasting. So these tools are very important, but it's not just having these tools there to say, hey, this is what the number is. You have to be able to interpret these numbers. One of the things in business is when a company looks at their income statement, they can see how much they had in revenues, how much they had in expenses, and how much money they made. But when you break those numbers up into percentages, it tells you a different story. You get better indicators of performance. And that's one of the things that I've done with my personal life. And things I've taught over the years to help people kind of break that poverty. Because no matter where you're starting, you can improve. I was watching a video, and it's a golf video. And this guy was teaching how to do a draw or how to do a fade. And what that means is if I'm hitting the golf ball, if I wanted to go to the left, that's a draw. And if I wanted to go to the right, that's a fade. And he said that even if you trying to hit a draw and it's still faded over to the right, the question is, did it fade less than it did before? Is there an improvement? And so that's one of the things we want to be able to measure is how we are improving. So understanding these values, so one of the assignments is, go read this 27, because it's very important to understand value and also what you're giving up. Because one of the things that talks about is redemption of an asset that you may give up. Well, when you give up that, it says you have to pay a fifth of value was. To convert that, you got to pay a 20% increase. When you give up something, to get it back, it's like you're pawning your own asset. You're pawning yourself. You got to. That's in Leviticus. So we have to understand where we are today. And so we go, one of the things is to fill out that balance sheet. So we got to understand value as it relates to who we are. And poverty mentality is, to me, systemic. It's something that kind of passed down. When we talk about health, they say, hey, that's hereditary. There's not many things that's hereditary. Let me tell you what it really is we repeat the same lifestyle cycles in the same habits. Now, and I'm saying this because I've been diagnosed with the critical disease. My parents didn't have, so it wasn't hereditary, but it was hereditary with lifestyles, how we ate, how we did things. That's what's passed down. But when stuff becomes systemic, we talked about that during the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's really not a Black Lives as it is a culture movement. And I'm making that statement because there were a lot of different colors out there supporting Black Lives Matter. And you had those, who were against it on both sides. I'm saying this that we have to understand how this stuff works. And God gives us the blueprint on how that works. And one of the things to understand is to understand slavery. And I want to kind of talk about slavery in two different parts. One is the one that we had here in America. But slavery was also back in X. Slavery has always been there. But back in the Bible, slaves still could get after so many years. And slaves were all different colors. And it was equal how it was used. We had to change that model when we had it here in the United States. See, that's kind of created the system of capitalism. And what that means is it doesn't help the wealth of individuals, need the wealth of owners. Capitalism itself is inherently bad, but the rules that are used and how people are held back, now it clouds the water. To understand that, schism, in my opinion, it's almost like the new word they use, slavery. Well, I know I'm gonna get in trouble for it, but it's okay, and I got the evidence. And it's not that it's bad, but it has to be applied properly. Because see, slaves were never meant to be compensated. But when the Jubilee came, slaves were free. But because color came in and came over here, it's made it very hard. And what we have to understand, once you are a slave to anyone, you're always going to be looked at as help. So let's talk about hereditary, or quote unquote, what's passed down. So if you were a slave owner, you had children, they had children. And if you teach slaves are just labor, forget the color. They always going to see slave as the help. What happened when it came over here, it became about color. So sometimes when people see a color, they only see help. And it's going to be a hard nut to change for some people to see you as anything different. What I know is God has a plan. And it tells us that slaves can be. And some of the things what we have to do is we got to sow our own seeds. We have to understand who we are and understand our value. What I'm bringing together. So tonight, I'm going to bring a lot of concepts and stuff. And I'm going to leave you scratching your head. But we're going to start bringing it down and breaking these chapters down, bringing these concepts down. And I tell a lot of stories. In Matthew, it talks about, why did Jesus always talk in parables? Well, because the disciples understood, but he said, you guys know what they don't understand unless they start talking parables. And I've always kind of like to tell stories. First of all, it helps me understand. So I'm going to break things down to stories and concepts, metaphors to get us to try to understand. But one of the things is sowing a seed. And, in Matthew 13, it talks about, the seeds that fail. Sometimes they fell on bad soil, on rocky soil. Then some fell on good soil. And when it fell on good soil, it came back 100-fold, 160, 30-fold. And he says, whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. But we have to understand these concepts. Because it's not about the money. It's about a spiritual awakening. And I'm telling you this from my own experience of what I've been going through, really last 2 years. And I've lived a great life, a good life. I've had some bad things go on in my life. But financially, lived a decent life. I've just had a good life. I've been able to do a lot of the things I want to do. not because I've had a lot of money. It's because I learned how to use the money, use the system, use the gifts that God has given me to stretch it out. You know, when I understand that how could he feed a multitude of people with a loaf of bread? Well, we can do that ourselves when we understand how to apply principles and understand principle. And one of the things is we have to, you know, Matthew 13:22 talks about hearing but not worrying about making it. That doesn't work, because he's going to bring the fruit forward for us. But we have to sow these seeds. And what does that mean? Do we have the faith to do it? So I'm gonna hit hard real quick on some things. And I've been in hundreds of churches and spoke and worked with just as their CPA. And one thing I had to learn was not to be afraid to speak the truth of the gift that God has given me about finances. So in the church, a lot of times, the pastor is up on the pedestal, and they should be to a degree, or the beacon that we listen to. But we have to be able to hear and understand what they're saying. And sometimes we have to speak. I have to speak and say, no, that don't make sense. I'm going to tell you a story. And there was a church that, they want a new building. And I advised them not to do it. And board members, well, yeah, we behind the pastor, it's going to work. I'm like, don't do it. So you have to understand, when churches go into debt, a lot of times the trustee board, board members, they get on the note also. And it tells us not to co-sign. Well, they went ahead and did it. Got the new church, the second church. And the second church, the pastor left. And he wanted to take the new church. But who was on the line were all board members. I'm saying that we have to know. We cannot be afraid to understand and to challenge what's right. And a lot of times we do things because it feels like being a good member and not understand the repercussions. We have to understand our actions. We can't just do things because that's what the world wants us to do, or it makes us look good to the people we go to church with. I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't care. So here are some things that I want to kind of hit you with, and we're going to think on, for next week. And we're going to break these things down. And we have to understand about our faith. And I get accused of not believing or whatever, and whatever, because you can't just pray and hope it happens. And I'm getting ready to hit you up that I'm not making this up. You can't just pray, sit at home, go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays and think things are going to happen. Faith is an action word. And you got to understand, without faith, it is impossible to please him. So, what does it say? If you read James, we're going to break up James 2:14-17. And I'm not going to be quoting a scripture from a verse because for me, it helps to read the whole book. Keep it within this context. But if it's safe, but you gotta do the work. No physical deeds, no faith. This is in James 2, 14 through 17. Read that whole thing. You gotta work. That's the evidence. Your work is the evidence of your faith. And I know that's hard because we gotta do something. Salvation is given to us freely. That's confessing Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. Believing he died and rose the third day. But now what are we going to do here? So we just get saved. Now we sit. We go to church every day. We come home. We do the 10 Commandments. Don't do things. Are we helping God by doing nothing? Because that's really what we're doing. It's nothing. We have to do something. We have to do something. His promises in Philippians, he strengthens us. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So I got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I'm doing well. I'm healing this natural. I'm not doing any of the invasive procedures. Not that I don't think they don't. Now you got to understand how is it working and what is the work that it's doing. My choice was to have faith in God to heal. Yeah, people say, well, they put the doctors there to do that. And we're going to get into, we like to talk about drug addicts on the corner and on the street. But if you got these tablets in your cabinet, you're doing the same thing. Yeah, sometimes we have to understand. Easy not to get on medication when we don't want to understand. When we understand, it's easy not to get on it, but it takes faith because it takes work. And I'm not against doctors. I have a doctor team. But do we just hear and do what they tell us, or do we understand? So we get into it because our body is I cannot do the work to show my faith or prove if my body is broken down. And I was willing to give up years of my life to do his work because he's given me the strength to get through this. So we could plant these seeds. We got to put faith into action. And we got to stop robbing God. And how do we rob him? Y'all know Malachi 3. We rob him with tithes and offering. So we get cursed. Not cursed in the necessary bad way, not these things. This cancer, I ran myself raggedy. Yeah, I was in great shape, but I still pushed it. I didn't look at the indicators 10 years ago. But Malachi says test them. So we're really serious about getting free spiritually, mentally, physically, and financially. We got to have faith. And faith is action. That's going to work. And wherever you are, we're going to build these indicators. so you can see the improvement of what you're doing. And I don't care if you on subsidies or whatever. But the question is, do you want to get off of it? I'll give you another story. Young lady has a business. You know, she's making $30,000, $40,000 a year. And she's getting $40,000 in disability. So that $40,000 she's making is under the table. Getting about 80 grand. That looks pretty good. That's the good living. You can retire a millionaire on that side. You can retire a millionaire, $1,000 a year. But let me tell you the rest of the story. She was offered to come on a movie set to do her job for $100,000. She turned it down. And I'm like, why you turn it down? Why don't I give up my disability? You mean that $40,000? Yeah, that's free money. Okay, but you losing $150. That's $110,000 difference. Because the 40 you're making on the, you still can do that. Because being on the movie set, you ain't all the time, so you still can keep your hustle. But guess what? You get to do with that hustle. You get to bring it above board. You don't have to be nickel slick. You can be pleasing in God's eye and not have to hide it. Now, I ran these numbers. We ran these numbers. Her decision was immediately. This was a 2 to 3 month process to get her to understand that this don't make no sense. Saying that we have people that may be on subsidized housing, getting food stamps and things of that nature. It's like, you know, I'm getting 30 grand, 40 grand a year. Yeah, but that's all you're getting. See, you can't build your wealth. You not get. Let me just stop it. Are you only worth $30,000 a year? And we talked about value when you read Leviticus. If you understand 50 shekels, it's about £1.50. And if you take it back 10,000 years, that equates to over $1 million. Now you tell me you only worth 30,000 when you go to that job and they pay you X. Is that all you worth? We always say, man, they don't pay me enough. What you doing about it? Besides complaining. I had a guy work with me one time. And I said, man, why aren't you doing this? He said, well, if you paid me more, I would do more. I'm like, oh, really? Well, you need to, why don't you just go and get out of here? That attitude is warped. You do your best job. So I'm a CP, you know, I make a decent, you know, I can bill out $200, $300, $500 an hour on engagements. It's even more than that. But I want to tell you something. I worked at the airport for 11 years, $15 an hour. I didn't go to the job at the airport and say, hey, I'm in my 40s. I retired, 3 years ago? 50-something years old when I retired. So I'm an old man. They're paying me $15 an hour. I could have been doing some other stuff making $200 an hour. But when I was $15 an hour, I was one of the best agents in that whole airline. Not just my stations, But you take all the stations. Because I took pride in what I was doing, and I was doing it unto God anyway. But I was also learning. No matter what you do, you get something from it. You take from it. If the only thing they pay me is $15 an hour, I want to get away, not throw these bags, make these planes late when they taking off. Or I had to take the stuff from the passengers crying because, there's a delay. I took all that for $15 an hour, and I could be making $200 an hour. But I had to, because I knew if I hung in there and I retired, family and I, we can fly free the rest of our life on any airline around the world. My airline, my flying equates to several $100,000 a year. I fly first class. That's how I can live like a millionaire and don't have the dollars. But I put the work in. But I had to have mine too. So I went into that job and I worked my tail off. But I also learned how to implement things into my practice. Because what I learned was training, teaching, continuing education. So we can say I'm getting this money free and it's $20,000, I'm gonna give it up. You gotta ask yourself if that's all you worth. You gotta answer for that. But what I tell you, no matter what you're doing, you can increase that. Get off of whatever you think you're doing from a work perspective. Open your own business. Do something. There's things you can do, but you gotta learn. You can do the same thing with your health. You can get off the drugs and live a healthier life. And we talk about, I just want to live long. Because that's what it becomes when we get on drugs. I'm just trying to live as long as I can. Because we're doing all, we got all these things going on. Because the drugs is killing our insides. And it's drugs just like Pookie and them on the corner. Yeah, they got an MD, but they drug pushing. Y'all are the ones that's doing it also for the pain. Now, it's like I'm the only one saying this. And they've been doing it to us and getting us to believe we got to do it this way. And I understand doing it naturally is not easy. But I believe God has, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I cannot be doing what I'm doing without Christ. So I understand I got to put this stuff in action. I do it. So I'm just going to kind of come back and talk about some tools that will be showing and helping us understand what the numbers, what the data is telling us about our life. If God put a numeric value on us, why do we stop and understand our value is for ourselves? And why do we settle for? There's nothing wrong with a good job. Hey, there's a great friend of mine who's a client. He came to me a few years ago, because I told him 15 years ago, and he was getting $150,000. I'm like, man, get off the plantation. And he thanked me a few years ago. He has a middle business now. So we can get blinded by what we think is good. But is that really a value? You have to understand, only you can put that on you. And what we want to help in this series is help you understand value for what God says the value is. Because it's important for us to do what God wants us to do while we're here. And we have to understand what he wants us to do. So no matter from a monetary perspective of where we are, it doesn't matter. I have to say, at certain businesses, there are businesses who are doing $10 million. There's a business who's doing $1 million or $3 million. But those businesses who are doing the $3 million, believe it or not, making more money. So we get blinded by false numbers, false information. So we don't really break down what the word says about a lot of things. Not just about money, but about our health. Healthy in order to do the work. It all comes together. Body, mind, and spirit. It's not by luck. It's not genie bottle. Because if guys just go buy a lottery ticket, just go to the casino and just gamble. Ain't no different. I'm going to tell you how they change stuff. Stock market. This is getting debates. They say stock market, that ain't gambling. Why? Because it's legal? I ain't saying it's bad, but I understand it. See, we too quick to judge some gambling. We won't tell that person who's invested in the stock market, because in 2008, when I was working at the airport, they were crying about 401ks that they had invested. And I remember talking to folks, guys, let it stay. Don't worry about it. But the point is, they lost a whole bunch of money. Now, you want to tell me that's not a game of chance? Why? Because it's legal? You want to tell me the drugs in your cabinet that's prescribed by the doctor is not a drug? Why? Because it's legal? Oh, we're going to break some sound. Because it all matters. We have to understand. So I hope you stay with us through this series. Have some tools. We're going to have some worksheets. So one of the things I want you to start doing tonight, start tracking your spending. Start tonight. I'm going to give you just a couple of tips to send you home. If you're eating out for lunch, that's a car note if you need a new car. How do you buy your insurances? Oh, we're going to break it down. We're going to shake the trees to get this excess. So I want to thank you for giving me this time. Pastor Chaney, I hope I didn't go overboard, go too far. You didn't, kind of me bored. I was waiting for the music to start. All right, brother, we gotta cut you off.
No, I think it was great. I think it's an awesome presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited about this financial series because it's needed. It's exceeded its expectation, and we apologize. I want to go on record and apologize for technology stuff as we're working through it. Please bear with us, but we thank you for joining us. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, please join us. Go back. Let's go back. If you want to follow Mr. Corey D. Moody, you can do it at Podbean, Corey Moody at podbean.com. You can reach him on all social media platforms. You can also reach the Renaissance Fellowship. I mean, we've got at Vegas Fellowship on Instagram. We've got YouTube, the Renaissance Fellowship Las Vegas, Facebook, the Renaissance Fellowship. We've got Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Vegas Fellowship. The blessing about this is that it's an opportunity for you to not just get this information, apply it to your life, but you can practice what you're hearing through Givelify. I need you to understand this. You really got to download it onto your smartphone. Then you turn your locator on, type in the Renaissance Fellowship Las Vegas. We got to add that Renaissance Fellowship Las Vegas, and you can give. Why don't you try giving to God some of the very best as we are giving you this free knowledge and educational endeavor every week? We're coming back and we're looking forward to more interactions. There'll be opportunities for you to ask questions. Yes, you're able to ask questions if you have questions. Ladies and gentlemen, this is more important than folk just getting on here hollering and doing other stuff. I think this is necessary. Thank you so much, Corey D. Moody, for the awesome presentation. That's an introduction. Yeah. Can you imagine what we get ready to face, y'all?
That was amazing.
That was amazing. Yeah. Oh, see, we got all kind of people that are logging in. See,
well, thank you. And I want to say one thing.
Go ahead, keep going. We
talk about plant a seed tonight, and just start fresh.
Yeah.
Don't call it a tithe. Don't call it even an offering. Tell yourself, I'm planting a seed.
Yeah.
And I want you to go back and read so you understand how those seeds work. But in order to bear fruit, you got to plant a seed. And I'm one of the ones who, I get on these churches all the time. Stop asking these people to give without giving them the tools to understand how to give when they ain't got no money.
Right.
But what I've also understood is sometimes we got to go forth in faith. And one of the actions is planting that seed. And what we're going to do, you plant that seed tonight. When you come back next week, just like when you plant a seed in the dirt, you in a week, it's a little sprout that comes up. And I want some of y'all to call and tell us about the sprouting of the seeds that came up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wow. No, you're fine, man. This is what it's about. Listen, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. We're probably going to be longer than 30 minutes because this is very much viable information that we all need, and we need to interact so we can help each other. This is not about Corey talking all this time, but it's about you engaging. You can be able to type in the chat what you need, what you're requesting. Yeah. And if you need to talk to him offline, you can do that. That's what this is about. We've got to strengthen the body. We got to strengthen you and strengthen your faith when it comes to not just money, but the value. What is your valuation? That's Leviticus chapter 27. Again, we opened the door last week. This week, it is on and popping. And I'm excited about what's happening with not just the Corey Bean podcast, but also the Renaissance Fellowship. It's all intertwined. It's more than tithes and offering. It's about the value of your life, your worth. What are you valued? So again, Lawrence, what you got to say? You got anything to say tonight?
Wow, that was amazing. I really like everything about it, financial, and so it's amazing. I can't wait. That's pretty much it for me.
And it's important, ladies and gentlemen, that we have our youth on. I need young folk all across social media to join us on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock Pacific time. Let me say that because I don't know where you are. You may be overseas in Dubai somewhere, but it doesn't matter. We need you in here, and we need your comments. Type it in the chat. We need more than you just saying. Check the audio. We need you more than saying check the audio. We were gonna get all that stuff straight, but just give us time as we're in different sectors. But again, God bless you, and we love y'all. And listen, if you want to sow a seed, sow it. You know, just sow it. Step out on faith, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest problem that we have, faith without works is dead. It's more than about money. But if you want God to do something for you, you have to invest in yourself. I'll tell you this, and then I'll let you go. We'll have final words from Corey. But let me tell you this. On this past Sunday, I was with a friend of mine, and I preached. And I did not accept anything. They were ready to write me a check. They were ready to take up an offering. I said, the Lord spoke to me and told me that I will not be receiving anything today. Instead, we will give you, we invested, we sowed a seed in this ministry of $500. We sowed into this ministry because we needed and believe in our brothers and sisters. The more that we pour into, the more we shall receive. Oh, have mercy. I don't know why it seems like I'm always talking to myself. But the second thing is, as I'm sitting there, Corey, and I'm sowing the seed into this ministry, the Lord says, give the pastor $100. So we sold $100 into the pastor, who the day before had done a wedding and did not accept any money and some other things for his gas in California. But again, God is amazing. And we hope and pray, ladies and gentlemen, that you have enjoyed what you have. I need you to pull out your notebooks. You got to come with pen and paper and write your questions down.
And and we're going to make this interactive. So we're going to get Zoom in. So, we're going to need your email addresses. We're going to get it to work, because we want it to be like an open classroom. I'm used to doing this in front of hundreds and thousands of people. And it's interactive, so I want to hear from you. Tell me, Corey, you're crazy. Let's do that. That's how we learn and understand. So I don't want it to be just me talking and teaching and stuff. We want the input. So we're working on the technology to get it, because we feed off each other.
Yes, absolutely.
We need each other. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. Yes, have your kids on it, because it's going to be simplistic, but it's information that kids need to know and understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing how, man, I tell you, it's what's needed, what God wants us to do. And we just thank God that he has led us to kind of do this together, to walk this thing together. So this is not about Pastor Chaney, it's Dear with Chaney, and about us, educating the people and bringing all of us to a better financial status. And what I mean by finance, we need to be financially healthy as we work on the temple, the health, that thing together. So this is not about Pastor Chaney, it's Dear with Chaney, and about us, educating the people and bringing all of us to a better financial status. And what I mean by finance, we need to be financially healthy as we work on the temple, the health, that thing together. So this is not. All right, there we go. All right, Lauren, that's it, man. Love you.
Hey, love y'all. Stay tuned every week.